Hi, Saloni. You okay?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. Just before we were speaking about Hong Kong, and everything seems to be returning slowly back to normal there.
Yeah, I think it's getting much better. Because of the experience that we had during SARS in 2003, I think there's been a lot more vigilance here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think we're going to start seeing the restrictions being relaxed soon.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's good to know that everything's fine over there. I'm just going to go through a series of questions using
Mhm.
my Wheel of Fortune. So let's just get to it, shall we? So here we go.
I grew up in Hong Kong. So I lived in Dubai for a few years when I was really young, but I've been in Hong Kong since I was about 5, and then moved to London when I was 18 to study. So it's probably the one I'm still working on right now,
Okay.
which is a pre-registered analysis of um, rare genetic variants that are associated with psychiatric disorders. The reason that I'm proud of it is mostly because it's quite ambitious and it involves working with lots of new software that I haven't used before, and lots of visualization that I think is quite cool. But for those same reasons, it's also been quite difficult to work with.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's really interesting because in genetics, is pre-registration of analysis plan common, or is it?
No, I don't think it's common at all.
Okay. Oh, nice one. Well, kudos for that. It's always nice to see stuff, obviously, with my interests.
Yep.
Well, I hope you do well with it.
Thank you. So I think it's advice that I've got from my mom. She frequently says if you're doing something, you should do it well, and that's kind of the advice that I live by.
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid advice, isn't it? Yeah, this next question is probably not applicable to you, but I'm just going to ask it anyway because I'm
Mhm.
interested to know students' views of other students. So, what do you think makes a good student? So, this could be an MSc student, undergraduate student, or a PhD student.
Um, that's hard. I think it's a combination of trying to plan ahead and plan realistically, not too ambitiously, and
Hmm.
also being open with your peers and asking for help whenever you need it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely my experience.
Mhm.
Don't be shy to ask.
Right. So I have some good supervisors, which is really useful. I think that the most important things are having regular contact with them,
Mm,
knowing that they'll be able to help you if you're stuck on any problem or you have any difficulties outside of academia as well.
okay.
And then maybe one thing that many people don't notice in a good supervisor is that it's important for them to signpost things that are coming up, like events or workshops that you should be looking ahead for.
Right. Okay. So it's sort of training as well as being a sort of somebody to speak to about academic as well as non-academic
Right.
things. Wonderful. I think these are very good and clean answers. So you have here.
Thank
So.
you. Hmm. So my sort of setup at home is almost the same as I had at the SGDP. So I have my own um, desktop monitor that I connect my laptop to, and I have a keyboard and mouse. Um, but apart from that, I think it's been quite difficult to adjust to working remotely in terms of how much time I should be spending at work each day and
Mm,
like the hours that I should be spending,
right.
um, and how to juggle that with like housework and things like that.
Yeah. It's you do lose track. I completely forgot that it was Easter break a few days ago, and I'd booked meetings in, and then had to
Yes,
cancel.
yeah, so did I. I'd forgotten that it was Good Friday.
Yeah, it's very strange. Um,
Before the pandemic, I had started getting into photography. So I'd take long walks around London and like sightseeing spots and places like that and take photos of birds and other architecture on the way. But nowadays I mostly spend my time playing board games with my family in my free
oh,
time.
really? What's your favorite board game?
I'm getting into Exploding Kittens right now, and there's this other one called Spyfall, which is quite fun.
Right. Okay. I've not heard of those. I know somebody who's really interested in board games,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize how in depth you can get with board games. Like I'm still
Right.
at the level of Monopoly and Scrabble or something like that, but you can get lost for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like game board cafes in London, isn't there? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I've been to
well,
some of them. They're great.
oh really? Okay. Yeah, it's a completely different world that I just never knew existed.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably Steven Pinker. He
Okay.
has this like tendency to break down like difficult questions into lots of constituent parts and then try to answer each of them and then put together a conclusive answer that's very insightful, like on the whole. And
Hmm.
that's something that I've admired for a long time.
Yeah.
And then he's also an excellent writer and science communicator, and that's something that I want to be as well.
Yeah, I've just finished, or I am finishing his book, Sense of Style, I think it's
Oh,
called.
right. Yep.
And one of the reviewers says he writes like an angel,
Mm-hmm.
and he really does. It's just really effortless to absorb what he's saying. It's really quite something.
Yeah, exactly. I think my own writing has improved quite a lot since I read that book.
Yeah, yeah. Just even if you were to take a minority of what he says, it will really lift your prose quite dramatically.
Right. Um, this one's a bit. It's not exactly an achievement, but it's a big experience that I had. So
Okay.
during my undergraduate degree at Imperial, I was a student representative and an academic officer later on for my course. And that was because me and many of the other students were quite unhappy with the way that our course was organized and the way that it was taught and examined. So I stepped up to be a student representative, and I tried to fill in some of those gaps in the organizational areas. So making a digital calendar for all the lectures available to the students, and then pooling learning material from the past years, and getting feedback from the students on how the course could be improved. And because of that, and then my role the next year as an academic officer, it led to a big restructuring of the course, which I thought was very helpful. So because the restructuring occurred after I was there, I didn't get to experience it much myself, but it still was really fulfilling because it felt like I was making a difference to the incoming students.
Wow, I mean that's massive. So I'm surprised that it was like that. That it had none of the what you would expect. You know, the as you say, the
Right.
kind of pooling of resources. So it must have been in a really bad way. What was the degree again?
So I was doing biomedical science at Imperial,
Oh, right.
um, and it was one of their lowest rated courses in terms of student feedback.
Right.
Um, but
Pre.
it's much better now. But I couldn't think of a paper like this, partly because most of the things that I read are from books or blogs or
Right.
online courses.
Interesting.
But one of the best courses that I've done is on causal inference by Jason Roy at Stanford, I think.
Mm.
And that's something that I keep going back to. That's a difficult question. When I was in school, I enjoyed most of the subjects that we were studying, and I had no idea what to pick as a career or even what to study at university. So I liked economics, biology, chemistry, maths, languages, and basically everything. And it took a really long time to figure out what I wanted to study at university. But I kind of based it on documentaries and books that I found inspiring. And I had watched a few on genetics and neuroscience that I enjoyed. So I decided to go into human biology or biomedical sciences. And even then, I wasn't really sure which field of biology I was interested in. So at each stage, I would just keep my options open by choosing a flexible or like interdisciplinary course. And in my undergraduate course, I had a research project on rare genetic variants associated with personality disorders. And I found that really interesting, and that's what led me to do the GED program at the SGDP Centre and then continue to a PhD.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow. It's really nice to hear this story, actually, because people always say, "Oh, just do what you like to do." You know,
Right.
do what you find interesting, but reality doesn't work like that. So it's really nice to see people who do persist in doing that, and they can achieve that sort of goal.
Right.
'Cause I think a lot of people are I think it is possible. I think it's just that people don't think that it is. So it's nice to point to examples, I think.
Occasionally, but I think it's not really about giving up. It's more that I just find myself interested by other subjects as well, and I wonder what it would be like to study them instead. So whether it's like epidemiology or economics, it just seems like maybe I'm missing out on something by being in this field, but I don't know.
One thing that people often do is compare themselves to other people, whether at the similar career stage, age, or discipline. And I've asked Stuart and Catherine this, and I won't tell them what they said. I want to know first what you think, and then I can tell you what they said. But what would you say to somebody who does this, that compares themselves?
Oh, I'm not sure. It would be kind of like telling myself advice because I do that all the time and it's very annoying.
Right.
I think a good thing to remember about that is with lots of data analysis, I find that there's a pretty steep learning curve. And if you spend long enough on programming, for example, the things that would have taken you maybe a week will eventually take you a day. So even if it takes a lot longer than you think it should, or that other people are doing better or faster than you are, eventually you'll probably get there.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And that's a nice answer, because I think it's really soul destroying when it's such a complex topic and there's so many different ways to analyze your data and different resources out there. It's almost, we have a supply and demand issue where we're overloaded with resources sometimes. So to pick which one is useful. I'll tell you what Catherine and Stuart said. So Stuart said, just don't do it. Don't compare yourself, which is sort of an obvious but worthwhile repeating answer. Catherine was, she kind of took it as almost like a challenge to say, well, given your circumstances and your position and career stage and so on, look for people who you would want to aspire to, rather than any kind of downward comparison. Right. And then you just try to reach for them. You try to aspire to be them. Saloni, it's been lovely to talk to you and getting to know you more. I hope you are enjoying the quarantine over in Hong Kong. It seems to be a better place to be than rainy old England. But I do hope you're well, and do stay safe, and thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem.